So with that, Elias, do you want to put the QR code back up? And if you could, this is the post-conference survey, even though it's not quite ended yet. So if you click on this or go to this, there's a Google survey, and if you can kind of tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, what you'd like to see in a future workshop, that would be great. And if you can do that, we'll show it another time, kind of at the end too, and I'll send it out as an email link too, just in case you don't have your cell phone charged right now or something. But tonight we do want to have a presentation yet from Dr. Ron Powell. Now, Ron and I have known each other a long time. How many folks know at least of Ron Powell from his work with the Ohio Pawpaw Growers Group? Yes. And of course, Ron's done a lot of great things, and with Terry, and so he's gonna talk tonight about the legacy of Pawpaw. So let's all welcome Ron to the podium.
No, I can't wander too much with my bum leg, so
Okay, this will be good then.
I got to stay in one place pretty much anymore. I don't want to bust Kurt's bubble, but in Ohio, we don't have patches, we have thickets. So a little bit difference. You know, I wasn't going to come to the meeting, and Kurt called me up and he says, well, you got to. He says, you're on the program as keynote speaker after the dinner on Thursday night. So I had to come. Hopefully I won't need help standing up tonight, but I just had my right hip replaced, so we're okay. It was difficult to plan. Oh, you want me to talk louder or just get closer? Okay. Thank you. Difficult to go through slides, pictures of almost 25 years. You know, how do you present things that make sense for different individuals? I'm thankful to have met many friends along the way. Believe it or not, I started out with the nut growers because at the time the nut grower groups were the only groups that would accept pawpaws and persimmons. And my mentor was pretty much Jerry Lehman at the time because I started with persimmons. Not necessarily pawpaws, although I grew a few early on. So my talk is actually broken down into two parts. First part is what I did at the farm, what we did at the farm. And the second part is how we promoted the pawpaws in around our region of influence, which was, I guess, east of the Mississippi River for that matter. So it was nice seeing all the nice beginning pawpaw plantings. Mine was a little bit different. At the time, Kurt was promoting that we were going to plant pawpaws in marginal land. And my farm is about as marginal as you can get. And I look at it I've gone through one cycle. My trees, like, Kurt, you haven't shown any of your good pawpaw trees in the back field, but they are dying and are dead. So I'm in the process of renovating my farm. So I've gone through one cycle, and hopefully I'll begin the second one. So you who are planning new plantings need to think about the future because it comes quicker than you think. I started the farm without any pretense that I was going to make money. It was placed there for me to collect genetic material. And at one time, I think I had about 125 named cultivars growing. Way too many for production. If I was going to go in production, I'd come up with a good dozen or so and live with those. But anyway, let me, and Kurt says this is supposed to work, right? The big one is, move it on. Okay, the first, and I wish I could see the pictures, Kurt. I hate. Oh, you put the microphone on top of it. No wonder I couldn't see it. All right. My first experience was with Kirk in 1999 when one of my students at Cincinnati University invited my wife and I to come down and visit Kirk to see his planting. So we come down and visit the planting. And we stopped out in the field, and you can see my wife standing there with a pawpaw in her mouth already. But at the time, the planting was not quite mature, but it was really a nice-looking planting. And it was a shame to come back in, 2018 and 2015 and see the condition it was in. I do have a picture, too, but I'm not going to dwell on it too long. It's gone now. He grubbed them out. Okay, there's a picture of what Kirk's plants look like in 2018. So they did do some crossing back then. I think he did some crossing with a Simona reticulata and triloba. And the flowers were beautiful. They had 4-inch petals on them. And the remnants, I think he's got 1 or 2 plants still out there in that short row that they had. Anyway, we'll move on. My farm is in one of the 32 Appalachian counties. There's 32 counties in Ohio that are part of Appalachia. And you can see where I'm at. I'm in zone 6B. Way down here. I'm in Adams County, but I can hit Brown County with a rock from my cabin. So there were a lot of challenges for me to overcome. We purchased a farm in 1975 for hunting, and it's 74 miles from our residence, remote, very rocky, and very hilly. And you'll see some pictures in a minute to verify that. I had no deep, rich, well-drained soils. At best, I had 4 to 6 inches of clay. I think it's K-wood, if I'm not mistaken. No source of water, no source of electricity, and the land needed to be cleared, and there were no structures on the farm. This is what it looked like when we started to clear the land. So clearing was going slow because we only had 1 chainsaw and 2 people, and we come up every Saturday to devote to clearing trees. We either chipped or made biochar out of trees. Get the right technology here in words. Lots of fires. And let me back up. Can I back up? Yeah. Terry did me the honor of letting me plant the very first pawpaw tree on the farm. After that, she planted everything, and we had over 500 trees. So over a period of years, she did all the planting of the pawpaw trees at the farm. I see the picture here, but it's not showing up on the screen. There we go. So the first tree was planted in 2002, and in the first 2 years, we planted 15 total trees. So by 2004, we had about 15 pawpaw trees. This is the first row in the north field. That's where we started. And the bottom picture is what it looked like in 2015. Now, we used buckets at the farm because I had access to them. I was a friend of Gary Gottenbush, who was one of the owners of Servati Pastries in Cincinnati, and frozen eggs come in them, and they could not reuse them. So we took them and cut the bottom out, set it around the plant, and a lot of things we found out about using buckets. Well, I see the next slide shows me over here on the right. Okay. The biggest problem was we used cow manure because the farmer next door had 18 herd of cattle, and we was able to use the cow manure, go over and check the pies, how hard are they and everything, And we put those around the pawpaw trees. The turkeys loved it because there were grubs and stuff in the cow pies. So they would dig out not only the cow pies, but my plants. So we had to find some way of protecting the plants. The buckets was the answer. We also found out that we mulch inside of the bucket to keep weeds out. And the fungi in the mulch would knit with the bucket and form a seal around the bottom. So if we put water inside the bucket, it went out the bottom and not run out the sides. That's the first thing. The other thing was the zebra swallowtail caterpillar loved small plants. So the first place you usually find them are on your seedlings. And we found out that they would crawl up the side of the bucket and form their chrysalid. Well, lo and behold, I had a gentleman in North Carolina that would buy those from me. So I could walk through the fields real quickly, look down in the buckets, and pull out the chrysalid and mail him the chrysalid. Did it work? No, it didn't work all the time because sometimes they'd be infested with some of the bees that were parasitic. So sometimes he would not get what he asked for. But anyway, we got him down to him. In about 2008, we had cicadas hit the farm, and we had them also this year, but they weren't as bad this year as they were in 2008. My wife got the big idea that we'd put nylon netting over the trees. Worked fine to keep the cicadas from crawling up the trees. However, along came a windstorm, and guess what? We lost about half the trees we had, and most of the trees that we protected. Is Neil still here? Oh, he's outside. All right. They were mostly his plants, and we drove to West Virginia to pick them up and brought them back and planted them, and we lost about half of them because the wind broke them off. And if you haven't experienced cicadas, they're an interesting creature. The female makes little slits in the stems where she places her eggs. And the slide up here on the right-hand side is how the stems heal. I found out real quick that the cyanwood from areas where cicadas were known, I had less damage on the trees. The trees never had cicadas. They really damaged pretty well. So in 2004, we decided we was getting tired of hauling the equipment back and forth to the home, so we decided to build a barn. And we did that, and we bought a tractor, and Terry's trying out the bucket here to make sure it fits. And then we had some interesting experiences. I didn't have gutters on the cabin when we first built it, so I put 5-gallon buckets down along the drip line. So every time the buckets would get full, I'd put a lid on and put another row of buckets up. And I did that about three high around the barn. And I don't know whether you know what those little peepers are, little frogs. I had more than you could imagine. They bred in those buckets, and that was the last year that we put the buckets out. So then I went to the 275-gallon square tanks, and then from there we went up to 1,500-gallon tank. We got a couple of those around the farm. The first tank we got, the lid had been crushed down because they had something on it to keep it from blowing away. And I didn't want to embarrass my wife too much, so I just showed a picture of her because she had to go inside and press the top of the tank back up level again. And I went too fast on you. My daughter camouflaged the potties for us outside, so that was her job, so she did that. And this is a picture of the west field as we were planting it. And we planted as soon as the trees were cut down. If the stump was in the row, we just left it there and worked around it. This is what the west field looked like in 2009. You can see how fast we try to plant the trees and get them in. Or I should say my wife planted the trees. I just dug the holes. She did not like snakes in the barn, so she'd pick up the snakes and pitch them outside. She did not want to live with snakes. And she did get to rest every now and then. Not very often, but she did get to rest. This is a picture of the east field, standing in the north field and looking down toward the barn. The only level ground we had was the ridge tops. We planted on the sides of the hill, and fairly steep. This is what the east field looked like in 2015, and by 2019 you can see half the trees have passed away. The last few years we have had terrible weather, a lot of drought in August, and that's when the pawpaws are filling out, and it really took its toll. One positive note, if you were on Google at the time, you could see all the white buckets down in the fields. So it was kind of interesting. This is looking at the east field, and on the left-hand side is the west field, and the top of the picture is the north field. Here's Terry planting, and you can see some of the rocks that she has to deal with, but we dug the holes with a spud bar. We had so many rock. We dig a hole and we take out more rock than we did topsoil. So she had to build a wall around all the trees so the topsoil didn't get washed away until the tree got established. So those of you that have had trouble with level ground, just add rock to it and you'll get an idea of what we put up with. This is what the field looked like in 2016. Trees look good. And I bought Terry a gator so she could get around the farm a little bit better. This is the cabin that I had built in about 2011, I think. Yeah. This picture was from 2014, but 2011 we put the cabin up. She said she was getting tired of sleeping in the barn. We slept in the barn for about 5 years. And in a metal barn, inside temperature, same as the outside temperature. There was no difference. It just broke the wind. So she said she was tired. And this is what the inside of the cabin looked like. We used all the rock, not all of it. I still have plenty left. You want any rock, let me know. But the rock wall here is about 200 feet long. And the guy that built the wall was a Kentucky level 2 drywall stonemason. Took him 2 years to do it. And he put the wall up in, if you can believe this, in 8-foot sections. He said there was like 6 to 8 ton of rock per 8 feet. So get an idea of, and I still have plenty of rock. And this is what trees look like this year. You can see there's no leaves on the tree, and the fruit's small, about duck egg size, and most of it's black or brown. So that's what we had to deal with at the farm. Catch my breath. Okay, what Terry and I did. This is the list of all the meetings we had. The first meeting was in 2001. And here's a picture of Neil. Chris Smeal is on the right in the white hat. And I can see why Neil didn't show up, because I was going to expose him tonight. How many of you have ever heard of the cultivar Wilson? Yeah, it's right at the top of your list, isn't it? Right up by Susquehanna. This is what Neil brought to us to graft, because his trees weren't quite through the regional variety trials yet. So he brought Wilson and Mitchell. Now, Mitchell is not quite as bad, but it was a late flowering tree for me. How many of you grow Mitchell? Oh, a few. Yeah, I know. You don't have to tell me. It's not a very good tree. I wanted to tell Neil that the original tree of Wilson I grafted finally died this year, and I cut it down. So, pardon me? It does produce medium-sized fruit, but it's not very big, not very good. You're not my worst enemy, Charles, but anyway, I just want you to know that. But that's what I say for my worst enemy is Wilson, and no Wilson. We're talking golf ball size fruit. And then this is a picture of my wife and one of my students in 2005 at the farm down in the barn. And we had one earlier in April. It was blowing snow. It's hard to have a tour, and she was cooking food in on the wood-burning stove for us to keep warm, so she was cooking the meal inside. But anyway. And then 2007, we was at Dave Simpson's place in Jackson, Ohio. He had a farm and a barn. He just remodeled, and we was able to go there. Then in 2008, we were at Dick Glazer's house. It was nice to have meetings at different places, but it was hard to get people to come to those locations. And this one was at Long Branch Farm in Milford, Ohio. And Cliff's is the guy standing over on the top right-hand side in the purple shirt. I don't think Mark Stadler is here. But Mark is sitting there with his blue shirt back to us. And then we was at Wilmington College. My best guess was 10 years was at Wilmington College. Beautiful campus, fantastic facilities, easy to get to. People were nice to work with. There's Mark again, kneeling down. I don't think he's proposing, but he's helping the girl with the graft. But one of the things that the organization did at the time, we made sure that everyone that was registered at the meetings went home with a seedling pawpaw. It was their option whether they wanted it grafted or take it home. There were some people that didn't like to cut the top off, so we didn't graft. But here's a lady sitting there, and her husband was with her, but there's the two kids, and each one has a plant. So we made sure that everybody went home with a plant. Our future is the kids. It's not the old people like me, it's the kids. We got to get the kids in. And did Sarah leave already? Here's Sarah. There she is, standing at the door. This is down at South Center, and they were doing a video of her grafting, and I was standing over her to make sure she was doing things right. And so I worked with Ohio State quite a bit, worked with Ohio University, still working with Dr. Brannon at Ohio University, and Kentucky State especially. And then I think I also assisted a young student down at the University of Missouri. So here's my wife, and this was at one of the Gorman Farm buildings, not far from her house. She loved to demonstrate cooking. And she would give a lecture on cooking, and I would usually talk about how to grow pawpaws. And she had a procedure where she had these 5 recipes, and this was a complete meal that she had worked up and did that quite a bit. Yep. Too fast. And here I am at, get my finger off the button. This is at the Nature Center, and here I am giving a lecture, and you can see all of Terry's products set on the end of the table. So I would usually talk a little bit, and she would give a little lecture. She loved working with pawpaws. Here she is showing one of our trustees how to pulp the fruit. And the lady on your left is Governor Taft's wife. They put in a Pawpaw planting, and Terry is on the right, and Terry's mom is in the middle. And they went up to visit the Pawpaw planting at the governor's residence in Columbus, Ohio. And at the time, during these early years, I only know of about 4 or 5 festivals. And I bet I would run out of fingers and toes today if I was counting the number of festivals that have popped up. I think one of the best early ones, this was in 2005, was down in Waynesville, Missouri. It was a truly family affair. Didn't have to pay to get into it. They had all kinds of rides and petting zoos, and they really made a big deal out of it. A radio station was there. I gave an interview. It was really, really nice. Then we went to North Carolina. In North Carolina, at the time, they were out in a parking lot. The extension building was there. The lectures were inside, and they had some baking products that you could sample going into the extension center. And one of the better ones for the displays was Pawpaw, what they call Pawpaw Folk Festival. And it was in Maryland. And they were nice because they put Terry and I up for the night and provided a lot for us, but it was nice. You can see that it was an interactive display here that they had for the kids, which was really nice. West Virginia had one for a couple years in Pawpaw, West Virginia, but it didn't last very long, and I think they've started it up again. But we never got to go to that one because they disbanded it before we got there. This is a friend of mine. This is John Neeb. And in Cincinnati, they had what they called Ag Days, and they would invite people to come and talk. And John liked to talk, so he was able to keep these kids' attention. But anyway, so there's some things we did. And then picture of my wife's General Electric group that she worked with. We were down to Cincinnati Zoo and was dedicating a pawpaw planting down there. This was in memory of a lady that was called the ambassador for the apes. And when the large gorilla was shipped to another zoo, this lady went with it to calm down the gorilla. So in memory of her, we did a pawpaw planting down to the Cincinnati Zoo. Here she is this was at the Cincinnati Nature Center. We had a lot of exhibits that we carried around with us. And usually in conjunction with this, I would give a lecture or take a field trip and go out in the woods and look for pawpaws out in nature. This is at the festival. I think the one on the left is Terry was cutting up samples for people to sample, and that's always a big hit at the festival. And you can never have enough help when people want to sample pawpaws. Then down below shows some of the brochures. And I think we had close to 25, 26 brochures we passed out. And I think the best one for Terry was the ripening chart that she produced. Ohio State, Sarah's shaking her head. They used it in some of their research studies, and they said it was spot on. Neil never said anything about it, so it must be all right, you know. And Neil and I collaborated a little bit on some articles. He wrote the text for the pollination sheet, and I took the pictures for it so people could a little bit better understand what he was talking about. Here's another picture of the festival. Picture of my wife at the festival with her biggest pawpaw. I'm holding it in my hand. I don't know many people that could select ripe pawpaws like my wife did. I'm going to show you here in a minute what I mean by that. We also went to the Paul Bunyan show, and she made sure that Paul was well fed with the pawpaws. And I would usually give a lecture on pawpaws, and it was kind of a different lecture because we're in southern Ohio. Everybody in southern Ohio has a woodlot. And what do woodlots have? Pawpaws. So my talk was primarily about how to improve your planting, not how to plant. So a little bit different process there. And I'm not proud. I would give lectures to Daughters of American Revolution on the history of pawpaws and the history of pawpaws in Ohio. And here I am with a group of kindergarten students. Only one didn't sample the fruit. All of them sampled it but one. Interesting experience. This here was a program at Procter & Gamble, and several times a year they would invite nonprofit groups in at lunchtime, set up a display so that the employees on their lunch hour could come down and look at those exhibits. And I should have picked a better picture. The top left is me at one of the spring graftings here at Cincinnati, or Kentucky State. Better watch what I say here, Kentucky State. And I usually would come down and help them in the spring with their grafting. And the bottom picture is a picture taken at a Civil War camp in Milford, Ohio. And they would have called it American Heritage. I got to think. I don't want to have to look at my notes, but it was called American Heritage Day. And it was for students that were homeschooled. And usually we would have cookies and stuff and talk to the kids as they were passing through. And I don't think Bob Johnson is here either. He has a beautiful planting up in Peru, Indiana. And it's in the Wabash River floodplain, and really nice and level, beautiful day. Invited me up to do some instructions on how to graft. So I went up, and Neil made fun of this picture, but this is me sitting out in the field. His wife brought me out a bowl of fresh cut strawberries and deviled eggs. Couldn't refuse that, so I had to stop and sample the food. But anyway, that's what we're doing. We grafted, I think, most of his trees that day that he had planted. Beautiful planting. I wish my farm looked like that, but no rocks, so I don't feel at home. Winton Woods, we did several projects at Winton Woods in Cincinnati. And picture here from the 4th International Conference. And the top picture, did Chris stick around, or he's not even here? Chris Smeal, going back and setting up for the festival. And he's standing at the trash can collecting pawpaw seeds. Now, we were hard up by then. We got our seeds any way we could. But that's Chris. And then the top right picture is, Cliff England. And the bottom picture is Dr. Pomper and Jerry Lehman. And Jerry Lehman passed away, I think, at a very inopportune time. He was a young man that passed away, and he was my mentor by far. And in the right picture is a picture of me. I don't know what I was doing, but anyway. And Terry got the Best Pawpaw Award that year. And then this is a picture on the left of one of the many awards that Terry got at the festival, the shopping around. She really knew how to pick ripe fruit that tasted good. She also loved roses, so the trophy she's holding in her lap was for the best of the show. That's the top honor you can get at a rose display, is best of show. The sunsets just tell me where I'm at, so don't be too alarmed. These are some pictures of the fruit at the farm. The only thing that I was really concerned about was the yellow leaves. And the yellow leaves occurred only on branches that had pawpaws on them. And it took us a while to figure out. We sent leaf samples in, and Kurt said, send them to Pennsylvania, and the young lady that was at the lab there, we talked several times about it. And apparently the magnesium, which is, if I'm not mistaken, water-soluble, It's transferred from the leaves over to the fruit. And I try to put down magnesium in the field, but I could never find out how much it needed. And I just quit because it didn't kill the tree, but it just looks bad when people come to visit the farm. And we did produce some nice fruit. Here's a picture of Terry. When we were harvesting fruit, we harvested the fruit Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And Saturday afternoon, we'd load up the truck and bring it home. And I marketed them to a guy in Indiana. He would come over and pick them up and took them to an Amish family. They would process a couple thousand pounds of pawpaws in a couple of days. They went down to Bloomington, Indiana, Upland Brewery to make beer out of. I guess the college students needed the beer to study with, you know. But that was a big business. And I had a walk-in cooler created with a bot system, and I would cool the fruit down to about 45, 50 degrees and hold it till Saturday afternoon. And then we'd load it in a truck, and I would haul it home for the guy to pick up. I know. I think there's a little bit better than 1,000 pounds sitting in the back of the truck. So a lot of work. And, you know, but anyway. Lots of zebra swallowtail on my milkweed plant. And Terry's standing at the back gate. She says, Ron, it's time to close the gate and go home. So that's what I will do.
Well, thank you, Ron, and you know, lots of memories. I want to have Dan come up if you could too, and we wanted to recognize you for all the work that you did and with Terry. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. So this is the Lifetime Achievement Award in Pawpaw Excellence. For a lifetime achievement, Dr. Ron Powell, for excellence in leadership advancing Pawpaw. So thank you for everything.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to give you the box to get it home in one. Well, I guess if we can have the QR code yet for the closing survey, if you get a chance to fill it out yet tonight, that's great, or if you want to go and get it on your phone and fill it out later. I will try and send it out as a little link via email to everybody too, but I know some people registered late. But I'm going to try and get to everybody, and you can tell us about what you liked, what you didn't like, maybe what you'd like to see in a workshop. You know, we might do some type of a little bigger workshop in a couple of years again, not an international conference, but a workshop, and you could probably pick the topic if you put that into that survey. So, you know, I think it was a productive meeting. I think at the end of the Olympics, they say this is the best whatever Olympics ever. I think it was probably one of the best international Pawpaw conferences. I hope you liked it. So, but yeah. And once again, it was definitely a combined effort and financial support with the North American Pawpaw Growers, the Ohio Pawpaw Festival, and American Society for Horticultural Science. They're very close. But they're also contributing, as I said, there's going to be a proceedings from the folks who gave the talks if they're willing to write a paper that then will go out to everybody too. And I will try and put all the PowerPoints up on the web. I know we're going through a website design, so they're not going to let me do anything right now, but hopefully in a month they'll have the new website up and we can put it up. So once again, thank you for coming. I thought it was extremely interesting. I learned a lot. I thought it was great to hear everyone, and thank you very much for coming, and safe travels back. So thank you.
Where'd you go? Tiffany, where'd you go? There she is. Okay. I just wanted to say something real quick about the food that you've had over the conference. We've used several different caterers throughout. All of them use local farm foods. They buy from local farmers and support local farmers. Locals is the one that you had for lunch today. They are located here in Frankfurt, and they have a shop in Louisville. They have supported over 1.6 million pounds of food bought from farmers since they opened in 2020. And the owners are usually here with us, but they were not able to come today because one of them was, had some trouble.
And I want to say Joni did a whole bunch of work in Savannah, many other people at the farm and from the department. So let's give everybody a hand again. Thank you.
I wanted to introduce you to the caterers that you had tonight. We use them quite often. I've known Tiffany for several years now. She has a lot of different hats, but tonight she was our caterer, and I'm going to have her come up and speak to tell you a little bit about the food and the farmers that she supports.
Of course, she had to give me a chuckle because I was like, I am not speaking. But I'm Tiffany Elamine. I've got a chance to talk to a few of you all. Yes, I am co-owner of Alfalfa's. 1973. Used to be at University of Kentucky on North Limestone, if you all ever were there. They are a local restaurant. I was so blessed to be able to buy it when it was downtown. My husband and I bought it when it was right before COVID, and they were going to shut it down. And when they were about to shut that down, they were going to close the brand and shut down Alfalfa's as it was. And if you guys ever were a part of the legacy of what Alfalfa's was, it was much more than a restaurant. It was Kentucky. Many of you all sold there, put your products there, knew the farmers and the bakers that were there. And my husband and I, my family, took that on and wanted to make sure that we still sold and put Kentucky farmers' products, including our own, into what Alfalfa's was. And we kept the name going, and you see the logo, and we kept it flourishing. And then our wife and head chef, Cole, with the food that you all loved, I hope, tonight. She bakes, she cultivates the same. She had Miss Grape in the back, if you guys remember Miss Grape, and had all these wonderful people who just kept on pouring into her and into us to keep the same values that Alfalfa had. We still work with farmers and make sure that those things keep on going. I'm just very proud to be a part of the Alfalfa culture. Like Joni said, we do a lot of Third Thursday caterings here. We do the Small Limited Resource Conference. We make sure that socially disadvantaged farmers' products still run deep through not just the University of Kentucky and Kentucky State University, but also Berea College and a lot of other programs throughout the state of Kentucky. So I'm just very proud of that. I'm also the director and founder of Kentucky Black Farmers Association. I am a farmer. We are farmers. We was working hard this week as we had twin goat babies born on Monday, as we were new goat farmers, and we're just very blessed to share this space with you all, and kudos for all the work you all do with the Pawpaw industry, because we love us some Pawpaw ice cream. So I just wanted you all to see this is family. That's my brother, that's my daughter out there, that's my future son-in-law out there, and just again, thank you all for this. So I hope you all get home safe and enjoy the food.
Hello, if anybody wanted any taste of Pawpaw bread, I'm president of the North American Pawpaw Growers, and we have a cookbook that Ron wrote. And here's a sample up here if you want to taste some of the bread here. Thank you.